Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to tackle a pretty mind bending question. What if the blueprint for a single cell, for a complex organ, and for your entire body is built on the exact same repeating pattern? All right, so let's just dive right in with a question that honestly has been bugging scientists forever. How do simple, mindless parts, things like molecules or cells, somehow organize themselves to build something as complex and seemingly purposeful as a living, breathing creature? Well, what if the answer isn't some ridiculously complicated formula? What if it's just a single, elegant pattern that repeats itself over and over again at every single scale of life? We're going to explore an idea that combines two really powerful theories to suggest exactly that. It's this idea of a universal template for how things come to be. Okay, so our journey starts by looking for this repeating pattern, not just in biology, but in the very process of emergence itself, how order seems to just spring out of chaos. Now, to really get our heads around this pattern, we need to understand two key ideas. When you put them together, they give us a totally new way of looking at life. So, on the one hand, you've got this framework called CRET. Think of it as the how. It's the nuts and bolts, the physical process of how complexity just happens. And on the other hand, we've got biologist Michael Levin's theory of mind everywhere, which gives us the what, a way to understand the purpose and the meaning of these systems once they've formed. First up is CRET. The easiest way to think about it is like a universal recipe for emergence. It says you start with these tiny, local actions, the micro stuff. These little actions start to organize themselves into bigger, more structured patterns. And then, this is the key part, these new structures are held in place by the system as a whole. This creates this incredibly powerful self-sustaining loop, which lets the system kind of run on its own. And then you've got Levin's big idea, which is a real game changer. He basically argues that cognition, or what we think of as a mind, isn't just for brains. He says any system at any scale that does these three things, it pursues goals, it uses some form of memory, and it can reorganize itself, has a mind-like quality. It completely reframes what a mind can even be. Okay, so we've got the how and the what. We have the mechanism and the interpretation. Now let's bring this all down from the clouds and see how this abstract pattern works inside something we all know pretty well, our own bodies. Believe it or not, this whole CRT loop thing, it's firing away inside you right this very second. It all starts at the micro level. Think neurons firing, glands releasing hormones. These local events then organize into what we call mesostructures, like specific brain circuits or hormonal feedback systems. And all that activity gives rise to these macro, whole body states, like the feeling of being stressed out or the feeling of being calm. Okay, and this is really the key takeaway here. It's all about the feedback loop. Your macro state, let's stick with feeling stressed, it actually constrains and selects which of those tiny microsignals get amplified. So more cortisol release reinforces the very brain patterns that sustain the feeling of stress. The loop closes and the state maintains itself. That's CRET, right there in your body. But here's where it gets really, really cool. This isn't just one loop happening. It's a pattern that just keeps repeating itself over and over, like a set of Russian nesting dolls at every single level of your biology. It all kicks off at the most fundamental level, the single cell. Each and every one is its own tiny, autonomous CRET loop, managing its own little internal world. But of course, these cells don't just stay on their own. They cooperate and form a higher-order loop, creating the kind of coordinated behavior that we see in our tissues. And those tissues, well, they organize into an even bigger loop, giving rise to the functional autonomy of entire organs, like your heart or your brain. And finally, all of these nested loops, from the cells to the tissues to the organs, they all culminate in the coherent, unified whole that we call the organism. That's you, the whole shebang. So check out this map. It really lays it all out. Each layer you see here is its own complete CRET loop. You've got the microdynamics of ion flows in a single cell, which builds up to cell signaling in tissues, then hormonal feedback in organs, all the way up to the global states of the whole body. It's a true fractal cascade of autonomy. So for this whole thing to work, information has to flow in two directions, right? First, you've got what's called upward amplification. This is where small, local events, like one little neuron firing, get built up into larger and larger structures and states. It's complexity being built from the bottom up. But, and this is absolutely crucial, it's not a one-way street.
information also flows down. The overall state of the organism, say its stress level, acts as a constraint. It actually influences which tiny local events get to persist and which ones fade away. This two-way street is what holds the entire system together as one coherent, goal-directed being. All right, let's bring it all home in our final section and see how this all comes together to maybe reframe our entire understanding of life and even consciousness itself.
Okay, so let's put the two big ideas together. How do they fit? Well, Kralik gives us the physics, the formal how. It's the blueprint for these self-sustaining autonomous loops. Levin's theory then gives us the functional interpretation of what these loops actually are. They're goal-directed, mind-like agents, each one operating at its own scale. And this quote just nails it. It suggests that what we call mind or cognition isn't some spooky, mysterious substance that's only found in brains. It's a structural pattern. It's a resonant, self-sustaining loop that life figured out how to do and then just repeated it fractally at every possible scale. And that, of course, leaves us with a pretty deep final question to chew on. If our bodies are a collection of nested minds, from our cells to our organs, all cooperating to create us, it kind of forces us to wonder, are we, as individuals, just another layer in this fractal cascade? What larger mind might we be a part of?